Hello and welcome to the results of round 2 of the 2026 SpaceChem tournament, which is called An Element of Luck in the Chaos, where chaos is spelled as K-OS, which implies that you might have to create some bonds between the elements K and OS. The metric for this is mostly symbols with a little bit of a penalty for grab drops as usual, and a tiebreaker by cycles. And there's also a minus 20 added to the metric to make the results generally closer to 0, so that small differences between good solutions are more meaningful. We'll see how that turned out and if 20 was a reasonable number for that based on the top solutions when we get to those.
Before we start, a little bit of this puzzle's history.
Yeah.
I had an idea to build a puzzle where inputs would be random, but not in the weird, broken way of random that SpaceChem usually has. I was very disappointed to learn, well, historically. This happened like years ago when I was first playing SpaceChem. I was very disappointed to learn that random inputs were not actually random. They were bucketed. So my solutions worked not because I had enough pipe space to accommodate the random walks, but because they were basically guaranteed to work. And so I thought, why not make a puzzle that would have truly random inputs, or at least random enough for them to appear random, as weird as it may sound. So I reached out to Yellow Bunny, and he problem set this thing. When I first looked at the initial version, which had something like hydrogen, carbon, and you had to make methane as a stand-in for four-leaf clovers, I very quickly realized that version of that puzzle would die very quickly to hydrogen grinding. Because you could quickly normalize everything to hydrogen and then fuse up from there. Hydrogen having the advantage that it cannot be split further. So Yellow Bunny found a really elegant solution. Simply multiply everything by, say, 19. And so this puzzle was born.
So you can still kind of make something like hydrogen grinding, but instead call it potassium grinding, because osmium is a multiple of potassium, so 4 times 19. And yeah, it is basically the thing you need to sometimes multiply potassium by 4 to get osmium, or split osmium into 4 to get potassium, and then create these outputs from that in some way. But you only get one fusion laser and one fission laser, so you have to be a little bit clever about how you use them. You get one sensor, which is probably required if you're dealing with these truly random inputs. I mean, you could still separate them by bond sorting, but that would be beyond what is asked of you here. And you get 4 bonders to assemble the output. Yeah, I chose potassium and osmium for several reasons. One of them that potassium is the highest atomic number element with maximum bonds of 1, where 4 times that element is still a valid element in SpaceChem, I'm pretty sure. And also, yeah, because the chaos sounded really nice for a title. And Anning is also pointing out that they are white and green, but I am too colorblind to see that, so that was not a reason to choose those. To me, all of these just look light gray or something. Maybe it's also my screen, I don't know. I can usually not tell what colors atoms are supposed to be. Okay. So anyway, I think that's what this one is about. Let's have a look at a solution by CrazyBot27. What if everything was K? So we get to our first approach to solving this.
Yes. What if everything was okay?
Yeah. The first approach is just turning all of our inputs into K, so into potassium, and then doing the rest of the level with potassium inputs.
I'm moderately sure that name was intended as a pun.
What if everything was K?
What if everything was okay?
Yeah, might be a pun. Yeah. Okay, we'll leave it at that. So the red Waldo is in charge of producing Ks, and if it detects an osmium, it brings it down here, splits it once, and splits it again. So here are our Ks, and then it delivers them to this place and hits a sink to tell blue that a potassium atom is there. And then blue handles it from there. So maybe we can just focus on red for now. So red grabs this potassium, brings it over there and hits the sink again. And then it grabs the other half that it left down there and does the same thing it did with the previous strontium, which is split it and deliver it to this place, hit sink, and then do that once more. Now all the flip-flop counters have counted to whatever they're counting to, mostly 2 and 4, and it returns back to input. And yeah, then it does that again, and in case it encounters a potassium atom there, it just drops it right here and hits the sink. So blue will grab here and grab there after a sink has been hit and just always get 1 potassium atom. And that is the job of red already fully explained. Astro Nelson points out that there's also some fun to be found in special case and special case. Yeah. Let's have a look at what the blue Waldo does now. So it always waits for the sink. And then it grabs this potassium, brings it over to the fuser, and fuses and drops. It grabs the next one. And this right here is a 3 count. So 2 times it brings potassium up there, and the 3rd time it goes to the right. So let's see what it does when going to the right. It delivers a potassium over here and puts it onto the bonder. Now it does all of that again. Brings 2 potassiums over here, fusing them together. like that, and that has created a new osmium. And it grabs the 6th potassium, and now it stores it on this grab drop, picking up the osmium instead, bonding that there, leaving it on the bonder again, and then it returns, but it also goes through this 2, 4, 8 counter, and once it has counted to 8, hits this output. And it always goes back down here, grabs the potassium from down there, creates 1/4 of the clover, brings it to the output zone in a place where it bonds to what is already there, and then drops it over there. Okay. So it does all of that again, fusing together first 2 potassiums and then another 2. And then when it has created another 1/4 of the clover or another leaf, it bonds those together and stores the partial clover up there. And yeah, the Waldo goes up here every time a potassium gets added out there, and there are 8 of them, so this is an 8 counter, and after it has reached 8, it outputs right here, which we should be able to see soon. So actually this is the 9th now. 8 are there, and then when it hits the 9th potassium, or is it the 10th? Might be the 10th, something like that. Goes up there. Yeah.
I'm super sure there is one simplification that could be made here that is quite instructive in my opinion. Consider what happens if you put the start commands at D7 pointing up.
D7?
Blue start to D7 pointing up.
So
have the flip-flop immediately above it point to the right and get rid of the arrow.
So are you sure that still works? That does not create osmium now. It runs over this flip-flop right here. Or something. No,
Maybe
the
one
flip-flop is in the wrong state. Because it hits it twice. If it goes here.
Start here.
Yeah, this would be not missing a sync. To prime this flip-flop, we only need to go over it once, yeah. So let's undo that. Yeah. So we can save a symbol here. I'm sure there's also other places where symbols can be saved. All of this does not look particularly efficient.
I'm pointing this out because a while ago Big Mac had pointed this out to me in my solution, so I should pass on this knowledge. In 3 counters of this sort,
Did you
You
just...
don't actually have to have the center arrow.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we've covered this solution now, and it takes 84 symbols. 85 without our optimization. Okay. Let's move on to the next one. By 181111398, unnamed solution, copy. This one is a little bit interesting one. What does it do? So right here, red is looking for potassium, doesn't find it, so it splits the osmium and puts it back onto the sensor. And then it runs through this stack of grab drops. And some people might recognize this when you have like a chain of grab drops and one Waldo going up, one Waldo going down. This is kind of stack-like storage for atoms. So now one atom gets stored into it. And then there's still no potassium, so it splits again and pushes that down onto the stack of things that got split out of whatever was not potassium. And then it grabs the potassium. So this is another way of normalizing the input into potassium, but also leaving a stack of junk right here. And yeah, then there's another 3 counter right here. Now that there's no more atom right here, blue is running and pulling one atom back from the stack and putting it up there by going through this twice. And then also doing some handling to assemble the output, which will not really do anything right now. So we can skip forward a bit. And yeah, then right here, if there's anything sitting on the sensor, blue just goes out of the way. But if there's nothing, it goes straight down and hits another input. But while there's still any atoms around here, red will handle them. This time it detects the potassium and just handles it by fusing it into there. Blue moves.
So in reality, this is a solution that could handle any kind of power of 2 times the difference between the atoms.
Yeah, you would just have to grow this chain of grab drops longer, and it could handle more greater difference between the 2 atoms by some power of 2. Yeah. So now red has the 3rd potassium, and it moves it onto the bonder. Now what does blue do with that? It bonds them together with the help of the bond command right here and puts that up there.
It's a really nice structure. I wouldn't have come up with that myself.
Red fuses.
I mean the fusion part.
Yeah. Also, blue keeps rotating this around. So it will rotate around, I think, 3 times in between the times the first potassium gets bonded and the second one gets bonded.
Yeah. In reality, we want a single rotate counterclockwise here, but we come here too often. We come here 3 times the amount we really need. So instead, it makes sense to rotate the other way.
And that actually rotates a 4th time now, I think, and then grabs it right there. It bonds it here with whatever is already there, and then stores it right here. This grab detects when the clover is done, so that will only... So yeah, that's a blind grab that only triggers when the output has been completed.
Or maybe it's correct. I didn't think about that.
So let's just put a pause right here. So this is the first leaf of the clover. This is the second one. They get bonded together like that. Then the third one. And the last one. There's this extra bond command to create this bond, and then it grabs it, drops it, outputs it. And that's basically all of the solution. So yeah, let's run this now. It takes 2000 something cycles for one output. And for all the 100 outputs, it takes 208,000, which is significantly more, but we mostly care about the symbols here, which have gone down by 7. Okay. So we've seen 2 solutions that normalize the input into potassium. Let's see what the next person does. That's Astronelson with last minute solve. This one actually does a normalization to osmium. So let's first of all look at the red Waldo to see how it does that when it gets there at some point. So it has primed basically all the flip-flops except for that one. And if it detects that it is grabbing osmium, it just goes straight to the right. That was not the button I wanted to hit. It goes straight to the right and drops it right there. Then it does that again and bonds the 2 osmiums together. There's a 3 count up there. It gets the 3rd osmium, just bonds it together. And now this 3 count tells it to do something different, which is splitting there. And then the Waldos work together. Red grabs the strontium, blue grabs the potassium that gets split out again. They bond them right there. It splits off another potassium. Blue does similar movement to before to bring the potassium over there. And that's 1/2 of the clover. Blue does some extra maneuvering around, while red already creates more osmium. And Astronelson points out that the red rotate under the split is only for a 1 cycle delay. Okay, yeah.
I5.
I5, this one. Makes sense. What does red do when it does not get osmium? It first of all fuses it to nothing, and then has a 4 counter right here, where 3 times it goes to the left and drops over there. So inputs again, fuses that together and goes to the left, dropping it off. And after 4 times, it will have created osmium. So this is how this solution normalizes the inputs. Got another osmium. Then it creates this chain of 3 osmiums right here. Now the Waldos work together again to create half a clover. And blue has the top half, red has the bottom half now. They get brought together, bonded together. And brought to the output. And that's how this solution works. So yeah, this solution properly primes all of its flip-flops and does a lot of running around before it actually starts inputting anything, which is something you see in many cycles, not cycles, in symbol solutions, of course. And it takes only a few hundred cycles per output. That's not too bad. So it is at 67 symbols now, so a drop of 10 symbols, and also our fastest solution until now. Let's move on to the next solution by Anningmay. 3 osmiums equals half clover. That sounds rather similar to the last solution. Let's see how Anningmay does that. So some flip-flop priming.
Now, right away we start with the different fuse circuits.
Yeah,
it's not like the one Nelson uses.
This one does not have a 4 counter, instead it reuses the sensor to detect osmium. But if it just gets osmium, it doesn't really use this loop at all. Waits on a sink, and then there is another 3 counter here, and it brings the first osmium to the right. Next one is osmium again, and it splits that into 2 halves.
Yellow binding may be exit steam.
What is?
Maybe exit steam.
Is that visible when
I do see it.
Thought last time people told me it wasn't visible.
Maybe it's because you're capturing SpaceChem itself, but Discord see the whole contents of the screen.
Okay. Why can't I find the thing to set myself offline? Okay, I should be offline on Steam now. So, red left a strontium on this splitter, and blue grabs that and brings it over the splitter again, while red hits the split command up there. So it splits the strontium into 2 potassiums. and bonds one of them to the osmium right there. And then it grabs the other one. This time red does not hit a split command. And yeah, this up there is just for building the output. Now this 3 counter goes to the right again, which it does 2 times out of 3, brings an osmium there. It does not need to bring anything down there because there's still strontium left, which now gets grabbed here rather than from there, but the handling of it is the same, producing 2 potassiums, which get bonded to the osmium to create another leaf. Meanwhile,
Now this is like a typical simple solution, because you see very wide path and large spaces where nothing happens. Presumably to combine them and to simplify and to reduce symbol usage.
yeah, these big rectangular shapes with openings in between are something you often see in symbol puzzles. And also up here, what happens when red gets potassium? It first of all senses that it is not osmium and then goes to the right here and drops it right there. And there's already one sitting there, which it picks up. Checks if that one is osmium, which it isn't. So it fuses them both together and puts the result over there. So put the new thing onto the fuser. Check if everything that has been fused so far is already osmium. If it's not, fuse it together and put it back into the space. And then it just delivers osmium over there. Now it fuses.
I think it's either the most concise or one or maybe 2 symbols away from the most concise osmium circuit.
Yeah, this is already pretty good. It's kind of not so nice that it always leaves one atom sitting right here, even if it already has an osmium. But we're not going for fully efficient solutions that don't have atoms sitting around for a little bit longer. We are optimizing for symbols here.
It is a little bit unfortunate that at C7 there's a little wrinkle in the path.
Yeah, but it needs to grab on the right side of the splitter and move to the left side, and since you can't rotate splitters, there's not really much you can do about that.
Perhaps there could be a way to be already going in that direction naturally. Or maybe this can happen at the bottommost tile.
Yeah, at the bottom you would have a flip-flop going left and then just an arrow going right, so save one symbol there. That might be possible.
So you would have to go through all the flip-flops going left, namely 3 of them. But surely it's not a problem at all. You eventually just go through them all.
But red also needs to carry an atom to the right, which would collide with the one sitting on the splitter if that was in the bottom row. So it's not that straightforward to optimize that. Maybe these 2 flip-flops and what they're doing can be rearranged to combine these 2 paths going down somehow, but I'm not sure what that would look like and if that would really save symbols. Okay, Anning says he tried that and that adds extra splits. Yeah. So there's no low-hanging optimization here.
Maybe there is one. Namely, blue could wait for osmium to appear instead of being stuck on a sink.
Yeah, that might be an option. Would also make IEEE happy if you get rid of these things.
I'm not quite sure what the right timing would be, but it's an option for sure.
But the thing is also that both Waldos are waiting at times, I think. So it's also not that straightforward to get rid of the things. Okay, so yeah, that is how an output gets created. This movement here is pretty nice to just move along and bond, rotate, drop. You use 3 arrows for that. But yeah, that is basically as efficient as you can add to the clover and then rotate everything and put it into a correct spot again and already having it sit on the output. Henning May also says that he had a bond hammer idea that saved about 10 symbols, but it was killed by the fact that osmium takes 8 bonds. So the comment earlier about preferring a green atom for the middle. Mhm.
It's not all that easy to devise a hammering-based solution.
But maybe we might see one later. To add some foreshadowing to this round again. Okay, let's run this faster now. Yeah, it's only 52 symbols, so another 15 symbols saved over the previous solution. And it's also not too slow, the bonus. So let's have a look at the next solution, which is Sabocar with better bond shape. Now, this one is another normalization to osmium, which red does here.
And yet another osmium rocket.
Yeah. So if it detects osmium, it just moves to the right and hits a sync to tell blue that there is an osmium ready. But yeah, blue does not take that one. Red does a bounce back and picks it up itself, just dropping it over there ultimately. Now the next osmium atom. Okay, the original name for the solution was osmium theft, because red leaves the osmium there for a little bit and maybe blue comes in and grabs it, which is right now. I think that happens every third time, so it's a different kind of 3 counter here. And blue splits that, goes to the left and splits that. I think this is a pretty efficient way of splitting one atom into 4. Bonds it to there. Moves this down to be able to bond to it right here. And then grabs from the splitter, bonding it to there. Now red is barely faster, blue does not get the osmium, and it instead still goes down this path where it went the last time that it got the osmium, but just, yeah, grabs from down there and splits the strontium into 2 potassiums, adding them the same way it added them the last time. And while that is happening, red is already doing stuff over there. So it got potassium twice. The first one just gets dropped on the fusion glyph. It fuses them together, uses this flip-flop to go to the sensor again, checking if it's osmium. If it's not, it drops it there. Otherwise, it inputs, checks if it's osmium. If it's not, it fuses, checks again. If it's not osmium, it drops it on the fuser. Pretty nice. So these two things and this one flip-flop, together with the timing here, basically form a 3 counter in some interesting way.
Unlike previous solutions, this one has connector bonders. So connected bonders are very strong.
Now the molecule has been completed, forming all of these bonds here at once. So that saves on 1 bond plus symbols that other solutions use. It detects that it's done by this blind grab and then moves it to the output and outputs. So using this blind grab, it doesn't need to have any counter to detect when it's done. Saboka says the bonders are too strong. In fact, I had to use a bond minus to avoid overbonding osmium. So yeah, it's all trade-offs. Don't need a second bond plus, but you do need a bond minus here.
In general, connected bonder shapes are considered strong because they allow for more path reuse and path compression. This is useful in simple solutions and in some circumstances in cycle solutions as well, as we've seen in round number 0.
Yeah, so this is two symbols fewer than the previous solution, and also one of the faster ones. Let's move on to Team Absolute Zero, which consists of Rexkix, Gigigol, and Zarkile. And it's called Amiga Bounce Ball version 7.1. So
they have an interesting submission history.
I didn't look at that, but you can have a look at that when the results get released after the stream. So blue does normalization to osmium here, and red counts to 3 osmiums by using these sensors, which is also an interesting way to do a 3 counter. So we once again have this check if it's osmium, and if it is, it does some stuff which currently doesn't do anything. Then the next osmium just gets bonded there. There's a blind grab to get 3 osmiums, but there aren't 3 osmiums, so nothing happens. Red and blue are both running through a lot of symbols, but nothing happens because there are no atoms yet.
This is yet another solution where bonders are disconnected, and for good reason. The first pair of bonders is used to make a 3-stick of osmiums, which then makes for possibly more concise handling later.
So yeah, this 3-stick gets blindly grabbed when it is done, so blue doesn't need a 3 counter. And red has its 3 counter in the 3 corners there. What does blue do with this? It splits down there once, grabs, bonds, and already shifts everything up, having split this already. So a lot of things happen rather quickly. And it shifts it up, so this potassium can then be bonded there nicely. But it doesn't do that right now, it just returns to creating more osmium. But it actually gets potassium, so let's see what it does with that. First of all, fuses it to whatever is right there, then checks if the result is osmium, which it isn't. So it returns to the left and drops it there, which is in principle something we've seen before, just with a slightly different layout. But then it actually gets osmium and just continues building a stick again. And it also bonds this potassium over there and moves everything over again with another blind grab up there, which puts the strontium onto the splitter, and it even splits it already. So this one loop here, which goes through twice every time, does a lot of things. And a lot of these symbols get reused.
Unfortunately, by now we've run out of ways to reuse that pattern, as the resulting structure on the left side is not able to be grabbed by anything in blue's path. So now we have to enlist the help of red.
So this 3 count has finally done its thing. Still wasting a little bit of time here, which is a bit unfortunate, that for 4 cycles of delay you need another symbol. But then it grabs these, puts it to bond there, and then moves this half to the right. And then blue does the same thing to the next stick. And then the 2 walls work together again to build the clover. Like that. And drop it in this place, output, and that's it. So blue is really simple and does a lot of the work, but then red has to help out occasionally, and that actually takes a lot of symbols. So let me just delete all of those. Yeah, 26 blue and then 22 red symbols. where blue does almost all of the work. So kind of unfortunate that red needs that many symbols just to help blue a little bit.
Well, the high-level reason for it is that the sense happens much too early. We would like the sensor to be placed a bit later, or the later part of the circuit to happen a bit later, so that by the time red comes over, something has already happened. So we could both get rid of the wrinkle at the 8th rank and maybe simplify red's actions.
Okay, so that's another 2 cycles saved compared to the previous solution. And let's have a look at the next one, which is Darius 1 with Slowly But Surely. Now, this one what does this do?
This one starts with the observation that instead of normalizing everything to one atom type, we could have one folder normalized to K and the other normalized to OS, which leads to an amazingly simple assembly circuit.
So blue's assembly is rather simple, it just drops there. And red's is a little bit more complicated, but still not that complicated. So red is actually looking for K. So it splits there. Splits again, that is similar to something we've seen before, and then it detects the K and just drops it there for now. Now it also sits on this osmium sensor to detect when blue is done creating its osmium. And how does blue do that? It inputs and then it checks if it's osmium, which it is. So that was simple.
By the way, I think this is the most concise osmium normalization circuit we've seen so far.
I think that might be true, yeah. And then red just grabs the potassium from there, goes back all the way around to there. I wonder if a flip-flop here facing to the left would also work. And then brings that over there. And yeah, that is rather simple. And then it grabs this again. It has these flip-flops here to count to...
No, it would not. We would have the wrong priming.
Okay. Yeah, so because red starts over here, it needs to go to the left, and we can't move the start symbol to the left of this flip-flop that would be facing to the left because there's no space here. Yeah.
Maybe we can start on A3 facing down. I mean, start red on A3 facing down.
But it only ever moves to the right if it detects the potassium, and the first potassium needs to move down, so I don't think that works at all. Or if you make it work, you need another symbol somewhere, which defeats the purpose because this was only meant to save a few cycles, maybe.
No, I mean, delete the arrow on C2, start red.
Delete the arrow, okay.
Start red facing down on A3. And then have a flip-flop on C5 facing left.
So yeah, that drops potassium there. That is not good.
Oh, we have a bad flip-flop state on A4 now. I see.
We also have a bad flip-flop on A5.
That's why it doesn't work. No, flip-flop at F5 is correct. It should have been primed, which it is.
But it can't be primed because the Waldo only ever goes to the right when it already has a potassium here.
Yeah. Go back to what we had. In this state,
yeah,
the only thing that's bad is that after the Waldo first goes through G5, the A4 flip-flop is in a bad state.
Yeah, I don't think this is really going anywhere. I was just thinking we could maybe save a few cycles here, but it doesn't work. So let's forget about that.
Okay, never mind.
You can try around with that later if you want to, but I think we've spent enough time on this. So yeah. We have this rotate drop. And let's see the final output. Blue creates its osmium right here. Red grabs the potassium, detects that it is potassium, completes the output, which needs one more bond actually. And then it grabs this here, so reusing the drop as a blind grab. And then dropping there. Why is this output not over there? I think that could save a cycle. Yeah, so these flip-flops right here are just to input a new thing whenever red is sure that there's absolutely no atoms anywhere on its path on the left anymore. So this is another two symbol drop. Yeah, pretty nice. Next place, we have Big Mango Head with inspiration from one Waldo version 8. Red is rather simple and blue is a bit more complex, and it also does osmium normalization. And yeah, in this puzzle, grab drops matter a little bit. So despite both of these being 46 symbols, because Big Mango had wait, doesn't have any grab drops. Yeah, Big Mango Head has no grab drops, but Darius 1 had 2 grab drops. Right here and right here. Big Mango Head scores a little bit better. So yeah, this blue thing on the left is osmium normalization, which did
quite concise effect.
Yeah. What does it do with the osmium? It has a interesting kind of 3-count flip-flop, kind of, which could also be considered a 4-count flip-flop for the purpose of only outputting and then going back into the flip-flop again. So it's a little bit debatable if that's a 3-count or a 4-count flip-flop. And the blue Waldo actually has a bounce back on this entire line to reuse some of the symbols on it, which is quite nice. We can see that in action later. When it has the second osmium, it now hits the sensor going up. So it splits once, grabs this and places it over there. Then red runs and handles the 2 potassiums and also moving the clover leaf over there. And then it already grabs the next strontium, which was right there. Now blue gets the 3rd osmium, handles it just like it handled the first one, but this time the red Waldo also has potassiums. So it creates this and then reuses the bond plus here.
No, it's going to
Yeah.
be relevant
Yeah.
when outputting.
Okay, yeah, we'll see that. So the 4th time an osmium enters, it just hits this output, which doesn't do anything right now, and then goes back, and now this is basically a 3-count flip-flop, so it goes over there. Red doesn't have any potassiums to handle. Also has to be careful with these bond plus and bond minuses to end up with the right number of bonds, which is 1. Yeah, the second osmium gets used to create potassiums again. And then the 3rd one, it's placed in there, surrounded by potassium. And then there's this grab, which only grabs something when the molecule is complete.
Also observe that fission laser is placed in such a way that it cannot hurt the assembled molecule, even though blue hits a split command.
Yeah. And then eventually it hits this output command.
I think you can actually hit that command pretty often because it is not. It's not always that there are structures that could be interpreted
You just can't hit it right now, for example.
as output. Big Manga Head says no. Okay.
So for example, if we were to put it right here, then there would be a single osmium. So that doesn't work. Yeah, this looks like the best position to put the output command. H2. Doesn't work. Yeah, I think Big Mango had probably spent some time looking into this. So yeah, let's run this to completion now. Big Mango Head also says that the fact that he could fit in the existing 3 counter was quite lucky. And Brokios says that the bond minus at H7 is tragic. Yeah, but if you run over this bond plus so many times, you need a bond minus. Yeah, there's only one bond plus for the entire reactor. And this is 46 symbols again, as I already mentioned. So, one bond plus is a big plus or a bug plus. A big plus, as Sir says. Now we have our host solution with 44 symbols. So this one also does osmium normalization.
So Yellow Bunny did some research, am I correct? In building the most concise osmium normalization circuit. And here you have it.
So these 6 symbols plus 4 arrows are an osmium normalization circuit that I needed to come up for, spoiler alert, my single Waldo solution. And I'm using it here too. So osmium moves to the right. There's a 3 count flip-flop here, and the osmium just gets dropped over there.
We once again show that connected bonders are very strong.
Next osmium gets moved onto the splitter, leaving strontium here for the blue Waldo to handle, and then we hit our sink, telling blue to do something with that, and we assist with splitting it. And then that gets put over there. Sink gets hit again. And another time, which is a bit unfortunate. But 2 of these things are really needed, and the third one just happens. And then with an assist from red on the bonding, it rotates that and drops it right there. The rotate cannot be any further to the right because that would collide with the walls when this molecule goes bigger. And then the third osmium gets placed there again. And red already placed the strontium that it was carrying around on this fission laser, which blue then just picks up and uses like the other one to add 2 more potassiums.
Yeah, it's a typical thing when you have 2n atom that you want to split into 2n atoms, and you want to pick up both with a single path. So you just grab the right side and maybe split with the other order.
Here we see one osmium that got created from potassiums. And the output is done, so this 4-count flip-flop right here goes to the left, adding the final bond, which unfortunately needs another bond plus, and then outputting. Yeah, so that's our host solution. "44 symbols and not too slow." Let's move on to third place, which goes to Kurokre with last-minute improvement. So
This is the exact same osmium circuit.
yeah.
It is amazingly concise, so it was quite expected that multiple people would come up with it.
Why can't we have this? We can. That should save one cycle. So blue detects the osmium and red also detects the osmium. Rukia says, yes, you can save one cycle. I was busy working on other things. Trying to get to 42 symbols with 15 minutes to go. Yeah, understandable. Now, what happens here? Because this was such a last-minute submission, I haven't looked at this in detail myself. This gets split, and both Waldos grab one of the strontiums. Okay. And this strontium just sits there. And there is a 2 counter up there, with the 3rd count being there, so that's kind of a 3 counter. And then it drops it like this, splits and bonds, so that is rather clean.
This is the quite handy idea that the fission laser tiles are often quite congested as you want to put split and grab commands here. So if you want to manipulate the resulting atoms, it's better if the atom being split is bonded to something, as you can now manipulate it from the other thing that's bonded to it. It's a nice observation that helps you both solve and optimize levels.
Having these 2 extra symbols here just to waste time is not great, but I think probably the best solution given the rest of what is going on here. What does blue do here? It moves this over to the left and moves it up there. Just curious what happens if you do this. I mean, probably doesn't work. But why not? This needs to be primed. Okay, it doesn't grab that now. And it would need to split there. Yeah, okay, this is not as trivial. Maybe there's something there, but maybe also not.
To be fair, I'm not quite in shape to play SpaceChem at this point.
Yeah, there's definitely some timing between the two Waldos going on here. Not that trivial to change one of the Waldos.
I mean, I live in UTC +3.
Hi.
Hi.
So Brookie here. I wanted to quickly talk about this solve. There's a whole bunch of timing intricacies here. Blue on J5 is timed specifically to be able to grab onto that first osmium from red, and that moves it onto that onto H5 to split to get two strontium atoms. There's that symbol there could, in theory, be, say, on like A5, but then you have to move the sensor on C2 down one to make the timing there work. But the bigger issue is that the reset times are not the same. If the final output after either a half the product is made or a full product is made ends up being a osmium that's made from the potassium pathway, that flip-flop on C7 is not primed, and so red will reset faster. If red resets faster, blue doesn't have the time to go all the way to A5 to actually properly do its thing. I was trying to get that to work, but blue ends up being 4 cycles too fast, or no, red ends up being 4 cycles too fast even when I extend its loop up to B1 and C1 with a flip-flop in there. So that's just not feasible. I tried. And yes, blue has a really big timing loop at G8 going all the way to A8, and that's just to wait for red to finish handling its its whole grab drop loop before blue can grab onto it and output it. A previous version of this solve just had a sync on red around like E7 or G7, just right around when it's about to finish its loop. That allows you to put syncs on blue in H1 and G1, and you can use a sync at about G7 on blue, which saves 2 symbols but adds like 3 or something like that. It saves 3 but it adds 4. So that was actually the latest improvement, was getting rid of all those syncs, and I saved 1 symbol from that this morning.
Yeah, thanks for the input.
That's quite the story. Why are you so... okay, I see.
Okay, so this sits at 43 symbols and is also decently fast. Let's have a look at who's in place 2. And that is alliterative allies. So Tough Thought and Britboy. Oh, I just scrolled through everything. And it's called All K. So I think this really is the pun that you were looking for. I'm not entirely sure if the previous one was supposed to be that same pun. And what does it do? Blue looks for osmium and splits it.
No,
Yeah.
it doesn't look for potassium.
So if there's potassium, it just hits a sink, but if there's osmium, it does run through its loop to convert that into potassium. So this is a normalization to potassium right here. And then it hits the sink and drops it onto the sensor where the input is usually at. And Prokios is already saying that this beats the metric by 0.1. And yeah, it is a 1 symbol save, but uses 4 grab drops instead of 1. So it beats the metric by around 0.1. Now what red does with this stream of potassiums is really elegant. So the first one got dropped off here. This is a 3 counter that goes this path once and then the path at the top twice. And the path at the top is actually just fusing into what is sitting there for now. So the first 3 inputs just end up getting fused all into this position. And then the 4th time, it still fuses, but then grabs what is there, which is osmium, and puts it over there. Which also means that the next 2 times it runs through, there's nothing to fuse into. So now it gets 2 potassiums. So it gets 1 osmium and then 2 potassiums with basically only these symbols right here, which is really nice. And when it gets this potassium, it drops it over there. And the second potassium gets dropped over there. Bonds that together, rotates, puts it in place. Also, there's now this blind grab over here to drop over there. So this grab drop gets reused.
So normalization to potassium is really hard to implement and typically consumes a lot of symbols. If you don't do it like SOAR does, or there is one does, I don't remember. But when you do normalize to potassium, it turns out it lets you implement the rest of your solution in a really concise way.
Yeah, this is the solution by alliterative allies, so Tough Thought and Britboy.
one subtask in normalizing to potassium is that if your input is already a potassium, you don't want to go through your normalization circuit. You don't want to register it as an iteration in your circuit. AA does this in a really nice way, because it tells red, the voltage that does the subsequent assembly, to grab the result right from the input tile, and the normalized potassiums, the non-natural ones, also go onto that tile. So when we have to skip the circuit, we can literally do nothing. We don't have to do a fake iteration, we don't have to do a run through, nothing.
So it would also be possible to drop this off in a different place, since red doesn't use a sensor to detect that. But that would mean having 2 drops on blue instead of the scrap drop. Or actually a grab and a drop instead of grab drop, and a second grab somewhere on red. And yeah, this is...
I'm also moderately sure this condenses into a really nice single volta.
It might. So yeah, so I think this right here is my favorite circuit, which just 4 symbols and some arrows, but it's really nice how this works out. And yeah, reusing grab drops in several places for nice effect. I really like how this, like basically all of this works. So yeah, 1 symbol lower, but also only 0.1 metric score better than the previous solution. And in place 1, we have Sir with a split hammer. Let's have a look at this. Yeah, this is only 36 symbols, so a 6 symbol drop compared to the previous solution. And I'm just gonna make one little change. Actually, no, let's not make any changes and look at what it does. On the left, we have our good old friend, the osmium normalization. It still uses 6 symbols and 4 arrows, so nothing new here. And on the right side, these 2 flip-flops act as kind of a 3 count or something similar to that. And these 2 flip-flops don't do anything but overlapping arrows, basically.
Yeah, these are routing flip-flops.
Yeah. So the first osmium just gets dropped off over there.
Maybe put a pause on D5 and skip to it every time.
Okay. So now this flip-flop here is active. So it's time to split this into potassium. And that happens with the help of the split hammer. The 1 strontium gets placed up there, the second one goes over the splitter again, and that's the first potassium. The second one comes from up there, gets bonded, and unfortunately this also needs a second bond plus.
Split 4.
And then it goes through this again, priming this flip-flop again. But there's also this other flip-flop down here, which now activates. And it goes up here without having a new osmium. So it just grabs the strontium that sits up there and gets the 2 potassiums out of it again. And then that just repeats. Yeah. Like that. And when the molecule is done, there is a blind grab that is also a drop when the Waldo comes from the left. And it gets dropped over there and output. So yeah, that's pretty nice.
Now this is concise.
Yeah. Let's run this. And yeah, 32 symbols. And yeah, I also want to show off something right here. So we can save a symbol with this solution. This is not optimal. And the symbol that we can save is this arrow. We can just get rid of that, make this a grab drop, and move this drop down by 1. And what that does is when what did I do? No. We also do this. Yeah. So turn those flip-flops back into a simple path. So we don't need to care about priming. And then the blind grab is here already. It gets dropped there temporarily. And output. Now this can also be made faster by moving these around, moving this down, and putting those back there, which is only possible because the drop is now 1 symbol lower, 1 row lower down. And now this is a 35 symbol, 50,000 cycle solution. And we can also take this split, make it red, and not use the blue Waldo. And we have a single Waldo solution that beats the first place. So says, I can't believe I missed that. Hard to see everything. Now this looks like an earlier variant. I had just 2 symbols less.
So apparently to build the first place solutions, you just have to only consider single Waldo solutions.
Yeah, who needs 2 Waldos anyway? I mean, you could still use the Waldo for something.
I'm not sure.
No, I can't. Oh. I'm sure there's still something you can do with it. But I think we can leave it like that and have a look at the actual fun solutions now. So yeah, nice job, sir. Even if you missed 1 symbol that could be saved, this is still a really good solution. And congratulations on getting first place. So, fun solutions. We have more single Waldo, all of which is not as good as what Sir did. So
I think we can skip our single Waldo.
I still want to show that this was the first solution that I came up with to this puzzle, just to check if it's doable.
Yeah, but this is not thematically relevant, but historically relevant.
It's historically relevant, and also the place where I came up with this Osmium normalization here. So I'll not explain it in detail. There's lots of flip-flops everywhere. Just see it run through once, and then we can move on to the next.
Well, in synchronous, it suffers quite a lot from having disconnected bonders. I think that the main reason why it has so many symbols, because you have to spend flip-flops on routing around, on managing symbol congestion around it.
So yeah, this is 60 symbols, almost double first solution, and yeah. Also, Big Mango had made a single Waldo solution, which is 54 symbols. It also does osmium normalization, but actually uses 3 osmium sensors for that. Not sure why exactly.
It's to be able to start from one tile to the left. Because the normal socket would start from the B file, which is apparently not enough space.
Yeah, Britboy is saying that actually all the people who made 2 Waldo solutions were making the fun solutions, and 1 Waldo is the competitive one, which is quite funny. So yeah, this also does a lot of moving around and flip-flopping all over the place.
But why blue?
There's a 3 count here to split the osmium into potassium. It's dropped in 2 places. Osmium from there, and then it drops those 2 over there again, bonds, the second bond plus, and reusing the drop as a blind grab to output. Yeah, pretty nice. So I would say, for being the best submitted single Waldo solution and also the only fun solution, this gets half a fun point. It's not particularly creative, and as we saw, also not the best single Waldo you can do. But it's still nice that you went out and made a single Waldo solution. And with that, we have seen all the submissions to round 2 of the tournament. Do you want to say anything else or write anything else in chat? Now's the time. Oh yeah, introduce round 4 puzzle. We can do that. Round 4 is Greek elements.
I guess now would be a good time to explain why we don't have a consistent string in the author field.
Yeah, the string in the author field is just our two names and generally the person who did more work on the puzzle at first and the person who did more consulting as the second one. And we also considered additionally crediting who came up with the idea first, but that was a bit messy, so we try to mention that in the stream. Yeah. So that is our convention for how we name the author of our puzzles. So Greek elements. You are given an input of ether, which is actually just an oxygen atom. And you need to turn that into the 4 classical elements: fire, water, air, and earth, which are represented as molecules here. You are given reactors, which have 8 bonders, which can do bond plus and bond minus, 2 fusers, 2 splitters, and 2 sensors. You get 5 reactors.
I think we have the default input rate, right?
There's an input every cycle.
No, we have fast inputs. Okay.
And yeah, the metric for this is mostly max. What was it called? Max.
Oh, it's a max symbol footprint.
Yeah. So the symbol footprint of a reactor is any square that has any symbol on it. So maybe a start symbol, maybe an arrow, maybe something else. So here we have one square with symbols on it and a second one. So this has a symbol footprint of 2. And then the max symbol footprint of the solution is just the maximum over all of the symbol footprints of the reactors. And also there's a little bit this one. And this should be a symbol footprint of 2 right here. Okay. Some confusion in the comments, but I think we can figure this out. Yeah. I think there are many ways this can be approached. You can think about this yourself, and there is not really one intended solution path. Just come up with whatever order you think is best. Also, a little bit back to the comments here. Big Mango had posted a list of things he found out about other people's solutions. So he likes to metagame a little bit, and right around the time where the puzzle element of surprise, so the challenge 1, might have started ending. So the period where its end might be started. he uploaded a lot of solutions that always were a little bit better than the previous one to figure out where all the competitors were at with the public ranks, and gives here a list of what he figured out about the competitors, how many cycles their solutions used. And most of that actually still accurate at the end of the round, but I think 2 or 3 of them changed. Okay. Now I have nothing else to say. So I'm going to end the stream now. Bye.